All right, everybody, this is Mr. Ainsworth, and we're going to get into how to raise a fraction to a negative power and bring in a little bit of multiplication, addition, and subtraction too. All right, so we need to start with the basics, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with base 1/2. All right, we're going to work with all bases like base 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, and all that because you know powers of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so starting off with base 1/2 would probably be the easiest. So we're going to start off right there, and we're going to take 1/2 and raise it to negative powers and also positive powers. So let's start off with taking 1/2, all right, and raise it to the -4 power. Now, because this is our first lesson here, we need to approach it from the basics. And what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called the power to power rule, and we're going to rewrite it. Rewrite it with what's called the power to power rule. You'll see why in a minute. Okay, so since I know that -1 times 4 equals a -4, I can rewrite it this way. I'm going to rewrite 1/2 to the -1 power raised to, let me just change the, raised to the 4th power. And notice that I took a power here, -1, and raised it to another power, whoops, sorry, negative or positive 4. And when you go power to power, you simply multiply your exponents. And so these expressions are equivalent. Okay, they're equal. All right, these are equal expressions. The reason why I do that is because you need to know what happens when you raise a number, whether it's a fraction or a whole number, to the -1 power. It simply reciprocates the fraction. Okay, and I'll show you. Okay, so what we're going to do is just bring in the TI-84 calculator here, and I'll show you what happens when we raise a fraction to the power. All right. Whoops. Sorry. Press the wrong buttons there. Okay, so let's take 1/2 to the -1 power. So watch this. When you do this on the calculator with this basic software here, you got to put it in parentheses. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. I'm going to raise it to the -1 power, and notice that I get 2. So what happens is that the -1 power reciprocates the fraction, or whatever the base is. I don't care whether it's a fraction or not, it reciprocates it. All right, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. And just so you believe me, let's just do it one more time with a third. Okay, when you take 1/3 to the -1 power, you should get 3. And the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. All right, and come on, calculator, go. And just, I'll do it one more time. So 1/4, which is 1 divided by 4, raised to the -1 power. Since the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4, you should get 4 here. Okay, which we do. So what happens is that the -1 power reciprocates the base. So reciprocate, all right, the base. So the 1/2 to the -1 power, well, guess what? That's 2, all right? That's 2, but you still have to raise it to the 4th power. Okay, so what I did was, all I did was I reciprocated the base right there. I get the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2, and then 2 to the 4th is, well, let me see, 2, 4, 8, 16 is 16. When you multiply 4 2's together, you double. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So this is 16. And you should know that because we did powers of 2, all the way up to 2 to the 10th. All right, so you should be good with that. So what you do, whenever you raise a number to the negative power here, you reciprocate it first, then take it to the power. So reciprocate the base, all right, and then raise it to the power. Well, you know, whatever the power may be according to, you know, whatever's given. All right, so it's a two-step procedure. Number 1, you reciprocate the base, and number 2, you raise it to the power. So let's do that a few times. All right, so let's take 1/2 to the -3 power. So you reciprocate 1/2 to get 2, raise it to the 3rd power. You get 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. All right, and then we just keep on getting some practice. 1/2 to the -2 power. Well, that's 2 squared, or 4. 1/2 to the -1 power. Well, I just showed you on the calculator. 1/2 to the -1 power is just 2, because the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. 1/2 to the 0 power. Well, that's called the 0 power rule. 0 power rule. And that states that whatever number you take to the 0 power is equal to 1. All right? So if you take 1/2, which is 1 divided by 2, raise it to the 0 power, you should get 1. And obviously you do. As long as the base is non-zero, that's always true. Okay? There's a 0 power rule states that x to the 0 is always equal to 1. Okay? As long as x is not 0. Okay? And the reason why is because 0 to the 0 is indeterminate. All right? You can't take 0 to the 0 power. You can try it. 0 raised to the 0 power. All right? And you should get an error, which you do. All right. So never take a 0 to the 0 power. Always take a non-zero number, okay, like 1/2, and raise it to the 0 power. You're going to get 1. All right, there's a reason for that, but I'm not going to get into that in this lesson, okay? I did that earlier in my previous lessons. All right, now let's go to higher powers. Okay, here we go. So 1/2 to the first power. Well, that anything to the first power is itself, so you get a half. 1/2 squared. Well, you got to square both parts. Okay, now when I say square both parts, okay, fraction only has two parts. It has a numerator and it has a denominator, as you guys know. So this is equal to 1 squared divided by 2 squared, which is 1/4. Now, when the numerator is 1, I usually just write 1 because when you square 1, you get 1. When you take 1 to any power, all right, you always get 1. So squaring the numerator when it's 1 is easy. So I just write that as 1 over 2 squared typically. Now, when you take 1/2 to the third power, all right, that gives you 1 over 2 cubed, all right, which is 1/8. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So hopefully you get the idea here. So 1/2 to the fourth power is 1 to the fourth, which is 1 divided by 2 to the fourth, and that's 1/16. And the pattern continues. All right, so this is true for any base. You do the same thing. So just remember this. Go back to the beginning. Whenever you have a fraction to a negative power, reciprocate it first and then raise it to the power. It's that simple. And as you get good with that, it becomes easy. Okay, now let's get into some problems dealing with addition and then multiplication and so on. Okay, so let's take, for example, 1/2 to the -3 power, all right, plus 1. The first step is you reciprocate the base. So the reciprocal 1/2 is 2. Raise it to the power of 3 and then add 1. And then what do you get? Well, 2 cubed is 8, and 8 plus 1 is equal to 9. Okay? You can even check this all with a calculator. You could take 1/2, all right, raise it to the -3 power, all right, and then see what you get, and then add 1. All right, and when you add 1, guess what? You get 9, all right, which is what I got. So you step it out. You evaluate the exponents first, and then you add, following the order of operations here. Okay, so suppose you have 1/3 to the -2 power plus 2. Well, you reciprocate 1/3 to get 3, then square it, and then add 2. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and when you add 2, you get 11. All right, and so if you step it out, all right, you will get some good answers. Okay. All right, now let's bring in a little bit of multiplication. Suppose you have 4 times 1/2 to the -2 plus 1. Okay, you want to handle the exponents first. Okay, following the order of operations. All right, so we're going to have 4 times 1/2 to the -2 is 2 squared, because you got to reciprocate that first, then raise it to the power. And then you have to add 1. All right, so what you do is you do this first. Okay, you reciprocate first. All right, I'm talking about this right here. All right, 1/2 to the -2 power is 2 squared, and then you simplify from there. So we get 4 times 4, because 2 squared is 4, and then add 1. And as you guys know, you multiply first, so you get 16 plus 1, or 17. Okay, so exponents, then multiplication, then addition. Exponents first, then multiply, okay, and then addition. All right, follow the order of operations, okay? PEMDAS if you're taught in the United States. Okay, let's try it again. And if at any point you want to pause and play a little bit, then interact with this video. Make it interactive. It's more fun that way anyway. So pause the video and try number 4. All right, and then when you're ready, press play. All right, so I'm going to assume you did it. So here we go. So 3 times, let me see, 1/3 to the negative 3 is 3 cubed, because you got to reciprocate it first, and then add 5. Well, 3 cubed is 27. 3 times 27 is 60 and 21, or 81, and then when you add 5, you get 86. All right, so you always multiply before you add. Make sure you do that. All right, now when it comes to subtraction, then things get a little bit tricky, so listen closely on this one. Okay, this is where fractions are involved. All right, we're going to take 1 cubed to the, or 1/2 to the 3rd power, and that's 1 cubed, 1 to the 3rd power, which is 1, divided by 2 to the 3rd power, minus 4. So here's your step 1. All right, you raise both to the 3rd power. You raise both to the 3rd power. Okay, well, 1 divided by 2 cubed is 1/8, and then when you subtract 4, okay, this is first of all negative, all right, but you got to be thinking, what in the world is 4 minus 1/8? All right, so I want you to think real simple, no fancy mathematics here. Just want you to think pizza for a second. Suppose you have 4 whole pizzas, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, from one of them you take out 1 slice out of 8. So let me divide this pizza into 8. So let's suppose that you take out 1/8. Well, if you start off with 4 whole pizzas and you take out 1 part out of 8, you don't have 4 anymore. You have 1 plus 1 plus 1, or 3 plus 7/8. All right, if you take out 1 from 8, you obviously have 7 out of 8 remaining. All right, but this is a negative number, so you write down 3 7/8, or negative 3 7/8, excuse me. All right, so these, when you involve subtraction here, these involve negative numbers. All right, and you got to be very careful here, and all you have to do is think pizza. All right, no fancy math, believe it or not. Okay, so in this one here, let me illustrate it one more time. So this is 1 to the 4th, which is 1, divided by 2 to the 4th, minus 3. Well, that's 1/16 minus 3. But you got to be thinking, well, okay, we know it's negative, but you got to be thinking 3 minus 1/16. So now you have 3 pizzas. And from one of them, you take this teeny little sliver out. You eat 1/16. You obviously have 2 holes remaining, and whatever this portion is through here, well, guess what? You have that remaining too. And 1 from 16 is 15, so you have 2 and 15/16. So this is negative 2 and 15/16. You gotta think simple. And I know that most people like pizza, so think pizza. Okay. All right, now pause and play in the video here. Let's get interactive. All right, pause the video, and when you are ready, press play. Pause and play. All right, so let's check your work. So we have 1 cubed, which is 1 divided by 3 cubed, minus 2. This is 1/27 minus 2. We know it's negative, but you got to be thinking 2 minus 1/27. And that's got to be negative 1 and 26 out of 27, because if you take out 1 from 27, 26 remain. And so you have a little bit under 2. You have negative 1 and 26/27. And that, my friends, is how it's done. All right. Now you just got to get good at it, and you got to get good at it with multiplication. So this one's a little bit different here, a little bit more tricky, because you got to multiply it by 4 first before you subtract. So this one here, you're going to have 4 times 1 to the 4th, which is 1, divided by 2 to the 4th. You got to raise both to the power, and then you got to subtract 3. So we have 4 times 1/16 minus 3. Well, 4 times 1/16, you simply multiply the numerators. So you get 4/16 minus 3. Well, we know that's negative, because small minus big is always negative. And you got to be thinking, what in the world is 3 minus 4/16? Actually, you know, let's simplify this. 1/4 minus 3. So let's change this to 3 minus 1/4. Always simplify first. All right, well, it just makes it easier. Okay, so let's remember that. Let's highlight that. So I'm talking about this to this, okay? 4/16 is 1/4. Okay, and then 3 pizzas take away a fourth. Well, that's going to be -2 3/4 because taking out 1 from 4 leaves 3 out of 4 remaining. There we go. All right, now time to practice here. Pause and play. Go ahead and pause the video and try this next one. All right, let's play the game here. We're going to have 8 times 1 to the 5th divided by 2 to the 5th. So 1 to the 5th is 1 divided by 2 to the 5th. All right, minus 4. All right, 2 to the 5th is 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Okay, that's 2 to the 5th power. So 8 times 1/32 minus 4. When you multiply your numbers here, 8 times 1/32 is 8/32. But before you subtract 4, you know, simplify first, like I said. Both 8 and 32 are divisible by 8, so you get 1/4 here, minus 4. And then you got to be thinking, what in the world is 4 minus 1/4? So now you got 4 pizzas. 1, 2, 3, 4. And from one of them you take out a fourth and you get 3 and, whoa, 3/4 remaining. So this is -3 3/4. Okay, and this is the kind of stuff that you guys got to get good at in order to be in higher mathematics. You got to get good at arithmetic. Believe it or not, this is probably more important than anything. People get the concepts, but they struggle with arithmetic. So focus in on this. All right. On the next one here, we got 2 times 1 to the 3rd, which is 1, divided by 4 to the 3rd, minus 5. Well, 4 to the 3rd, well, let me see. 4 times 4 times 4 is 16 times 4, which is 64. So this is 2 times 1/64 minus 5. And that's the same as 2/64. So 2/64 minus 5. And that's 1/32 when you simplify it. Okay, now it's negative, but you got to be thinking 5 minus 1/32. So now you have 5 pizzas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you take out 1 slice out of 32, which is extremely small. It means you have 4 and 31/32 left over. But it's got to be negative, so you put -4 and 31/32. Okay? So you got to step it out. All right, and show me how it's done. All right, now at this point, I just want you to pause and play and get some serious practice, okay? So if you're spending the time on this video and you want to make it worth it, okay, then you will pause and play and be interactive versus just sit there and be like a robot, okay? So you got to pause and play. Pause the video and press play when you're ready and check your work, and that's how you get better. All right, not just by copying. Okay, we don't do that. So do not copy. Don't copy. All right? Be smart about it. All right? Be smart and practice. That's how you're going to get good. Okay, so pause the video and go for it. All right, I'm going to assume you did it, and so here we go. Reciprocate the fraction, so you get 2, and then raise it to the power. Then add 3, and that 16 plus 3 is 19. Okay, try the next one. Okay, now this one here, you're going to reciprocate the fraction to get 3, and then raise it to the 3rd power, and then add 1. That's 27 plus 1, or 28. Okay, try number 3. Okay, on this one you get 4 times 1 over 2 cubed plus 5. This is 4 times 1/8 plus 5. 4/8 plus 5, and that's the same as 1/2 plus 5, or 5 1/2. Okay? You got to simplify your fractions first. It's easier. Okay, try number 4. Okay, on this one we have 2 times 1. Ooh, back up here. Got to reciprocate 1/3 to get 3, and then raise it to the second power, and then add 3. So this gives you 2 times 9 plus 3, which is 18 plus 3, or 21. All right, try number 5. Okay, on this one you have 4 times 1 to the 4th, which is 1 divided by 2 to the 4th. All right, plus 7. This is 4 times 1/16 plus 7, which is 4/16 plus 7. All right, that's 1/4 plus 7, or 7 1/4. All right, try number 6. All right, on this one you get 3 times 1/9 plus 4, which is 3/9 plus 4, which is 1/3 plus 4, or 4 1/3. So you got to be good at multiplying the fractions. Just simply multiply the numerators. 3 times 1 is 3. Look at that. 3/9 is 1/3. That's called simplifying. And then you simply add. All right, try the next one. All right, now this one is 1 divided by 2 to the 4th minus 2. This is 1/16 minus 2, or negative 1 15/16. All right, go for it. Number 8. All right, this is 1/3 to the second power. So this is 1 squared, which is 1, divided by 3 squared minus 3. This is 1/9 minus 3. So we know it's negative, but you got to be thinking 3 minus 1/9, and that's equal to negative 2 8/9. Because if you take away 1 from 9, then obviously 8 out of 9 remains. Okay? All right, next one, try it, number 9. All right, so 4 times 1 to the 5th, which is 1, divided by 2 to the 5th, minus 4. This is 4 times 1/32 minus 4. So when you multiply the numerators, right here, you get 4. So 4/32 minus 4 is a negative number. So you got to be thinking, what in the world is 4 minus 4/32? And that's equal to negative 3, and let me see, 32 minus 4 is 28. So 28/32, and then you simplify it to negative 3, and both these are divisible by 4, so negative 3 7/8. So you want to simplify. All right. Okay, next one here. So this one here, go for it first, actually. All right, and this one here, let's get a little bit more room here. There we go. All right, is 5 times 1 divided by 5 cubed minus 2. And this is 5 times 1. Let me see, 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5. That's 25 times 5, or 125. So 125ths. All right, minus 2. Multiply the fractions. All right, and you get 5 divided by 1/25 minus 2. And that's a negative number. So you got to figure out what in the world is, well, actually, let's simplify first. Okay, now watch this. Both of these numbers are divisible by 5 because they end in 5. If we know that 5 times 25 is 125, then if you go backwards and divide 125 by 5, you should get 25. So this is 1/25 minus 2, which is equal to the negative of whatever 2 minus 1/25 is. And then you get negative 1, and let me see, 1 from 25 is 24, and so you get negative 1 24/25. And that, my friends, is how it's done, okay? So let's get good at this before we hit exponential functions, because pretty soon you're going to be graphing and evaluating exponential functions and using all this arithmetic, okay? So hopefully this video was beneficial. I'll see you in my next one in exponential functions. All right, this is Mr. Ainsworth. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.